Today is February 2nd, 2022. My name is Rob Carr of Kalamazoo Right to Life, and this is Pro-Life Week. Well, three things on the docket today. The first is Jen Psaki, the press secretary, was asked, I believe just yesterday, what was President Biden's position regarding human life beginning at the moment of conception. And Psaki, like most pro-abortion Democrats, they will shift. They will transition to a different answer. And she said that President Biden supports a women's right to choose. And the journalist came back and said to her, "You didn't answer my question." To which she responded a second time that the president's position is that he believes a woman should have a right to choose. And the journalist again said, "You haven't answered my question." So here we go, round and round. For a man who claims to want to follow the science when it comes to COVID and perhaps climate change, he's very reluctant to follow the science on embryology, fetology, and the absolute fact that human life begins at conception, and that at the moment of conception, that tiny embryo receives or acquires distinct DNA from the mother or from the father. It's just science. So here again, the Democrats are hell-bent on supporting abortion on demand through all 9 months of pregnancy, and no matter how much they twist themselves like a pretzel, they can't deny the fact that life begins at conception. Second point, the Bishop of Las Vegas, Nevada, is George Thomas, and he very recently said that he told pro-abortion Catholic politicians not to come forward to receive communion unless they repent of their position and obviously vote accordingly. And I'll read here just briefly. The bishop gave a great quote. There are not to be throwaway people, no disposable souls, no second-class citizens, unquote. I like that. Reminds me of what Dr. Robin Perucci of Kalamazoo said just last week at our Roe v. Wade prayer rally, where she made reference to the fact that the other side considers the unborn to be pretend people. And she said they are not pretend people. Those little ones are alive, and growing, and human. They are just as human as we are, but they're tiny, but they are human. The last item I want to mention is something I said I was going to talk about today, from last week's program, and that has to do with this petition drive that's going to be starting fairly soon by the pro-abortion groups in Michigan. Their intention is to place on the November 2022 ballot a referendum that would be a state constitutional amendment, a change to throw out Michigan's 1846 pro-life law and replace it with a pro-abortion law. This obviously is a response to the Supreme Court's Dobbs decision, because the argument is, if the Supreme Court were to overturn Roe v. Wade, these pro-abortion people want to make sure that there is a pro-choice law on the books to protect women to get their abortions. So here again, I'm going to read here. This is summary language approved by the Bureau of Elections about a week and a half ago. So here we go. Constitutional amendment to establish new individual right to reproductive freedom including right to make and carry out all decisions about pregnancy, such as, they're going to list 8 different categories, such as prenatal care, childbirth, postpartum care, contraception, sterilization, abortion, miscarriage management, and fertility. Allow state to prohibit abortion after fetal viability unless needed to protect a patient's life or physical or mental health. Forbid state discrimination in enforcement of the right to abortion. Prohibit prosecution of an individual or a person helping a pregnant individual. For exercising rights established by this amendment, and here's the kicker for the last one, and invalidate all state laws that conflict with this amendment. Not some state laws, all state laws. So let's just kind of go back here from the beginning. They want to establish an individual right to reproductive freedom. And they couch this, or I should say they bury abortion in this list of 8 categories. But let's be honest. The referendum is only about abortion. I mean, they're not caring about prenatal care and childbirth and miscarriage management. This is solely to get abortion into the Michigan Constitution. The word abortion and reproductive freedom. That's what this is all about. It's about abortion. And then, they say here that they would allow the state to prohibit abortion after fetal viability, which here we've talked before is a very fluid, arbitrary benchmark. Unless needed to protect the woman's life or physical or mental health. Well, that was the argument 20 years ago when Bill Clinton vetoed pro-life legislation banning partial birth abortions. His argument was, I have to veto this because the law does not allow a health exception. So here we are now. They've introduced a health exception to this amendment that now would basically would legalize partial birth abortion. The last item is a kicker: to invalidate all state laws that conflict with this amendment. So, what kinds of laws would be nullified if this thing passes? Parental consent or parental notification. Parents no longer have any kind of control over medical decisions for their minor daughter. Informed consent. The doctor required to provide the woman information about risks inherent in the abortion procedure. The insurance rider that was voted on, was by petition drive that we just passed, that would be nullified. State funding for abortions that was passed back in 1988, that would be nullified. Right down the line, all these things would no longer be law in Michigan if this referendum passes. So I would say right now, if any of you are interested in donating money to Right to Life of Michigan to help, because they're going to need money to run an effective ad campaign to defeat this referendum. Because obviously we want to gear it initially toward don't sign it. Don't sign this referendum. But if it were to pass, we're going to need money to make sure that this is defeated. So if you're interested in giving a donation to Right to Life for Michigan, their address is Right to Life for Michigan, P.O. Box 901, Grand Rapids, Michigan, 49509. And, it's just something that we all need to become partakers in. Because I know Rights to Life, Kelmus Rights to Life is good to be donating money. So don't feel like if you give, you're going to be the only one. No, trust me, we're going to be giving quite a bit of money to help defeat this evil referendum. And so I'll leave it with that. Got to go outside and do some more shoveling. Today was a big snow day. And with that, I'll let you go. See you next time. Goodbye.